Greetings, pen pals. I have a fairly new pen for you today. This is actually a variant on a pen that's been out for a while. This is the Wingsung model 699, but it's the piston filling version, which is new. So Wingsung a while ago, well, maybe not a while ago, a year or maybe less, came out with this pen, which is the Wingsung 699, which is a vac filler. This is essentially the same pen in a piston filling version. Again, these pens are very, very similarly styled to the Pilot Custom 823, but from a price perspective, we're talking about an order of magnitude cheaper. You're talking about a pen that's well north of $200, and at least the piston filling version of this pen costs just under $25. So we're talking about a much, much different, obviously steel nib versus a gold nib, and a whole host of other things. So from a size perspective, this pen is pretty much spot on size-wise with the 699 piston filler is the exact same size as the 699 vac filler, which is also the exact same size as the Pilot Custom 823. To compare it to some other popular pens, here it is compared to a Lamy Safari and a Pilot Metropolitan. And as you can see, it's a bit bigger than either of these very, very popular pens, but not what you call a giant oversized pen by any means. Weight-wise, this pen is 21 grams. It's quite a bit lighter than its vacuum filling brother. The vac filler is 31 grams, so you're talking about percentage-wise, at least, quite a bit difference in weight. Obviously, the vac filling mechanism adds quite a bit of metal to the contents of the pen. In terms of the way this pen is fitted out, it has a nice cap band that says Wingsung 699, made in China, and it's kind of a nice cap band, again styled a little bit like the Pilot is. The clip itself is a nice clip. It's got a Wingsung logo on it, and it's a nice sort of just design that's very functional and comes up and terminates in a nice piece of trim, which is a clip band. And the cap clearly has a inner cap liner to keep the pen from drying out, and you can clearly see it with this gray colored plastic inside the clear plastic cap, and a black finial on the top. So this is a clear bodied version with black finials and a black section. As you'll see, they do make this in other materials and finishes as well. It's a screw to uncap pen. Takes 2 turns to unscrew, and as you can see, the piston turning knob and the finial on the top of the cap are very similarly fitted out and trimmed to match quite nicely. The section is also the same black plastic. It's a nice size and shape section as well, with a little gold trim ring right there. And it's a nice nib, steel nib. It says Wingsung. It's a two-tone nib, actually. It's a two-tone steel nib. It says Wingsung, has the Wingsung logo, some scroll work, and an M for medium. This is a medium nib, and it has a uninspiring plastic feed. All in all, pretty nice looking pen. Has a couple of nice features that I like. The finial on the top can be unscrewed, and you can adjust the clip. If the clip ever gets bent or anything like that, I always kind of like that. In terms of disassembly, which is always an issue with piston fillers, let's discuss this a little bit. So you can but you can unscrew the section. And be careful, don't lose this little trim ring, because it does come out when you unscrew the section, and the nib and feed can be pulled as well. So that's one aspect of disassembly. Now you can get in there and clean and lubricate, but if you want to get behind the piston, you got to do a little bit more. Now if you turn this piston mechanism, you can see, and it might be hard to see on the camera, but trust me, they're there. There are little flat areas where you theoretically could get a tool in there, and one might think, oh, what about a Twisby wrench? That would be great. Unfortunately, it's just a tiny bit too big to get a Twisby wrench on it, which you'd think, oh my God, that's so unfortunate. But there is a bright side here. If you keep turning, this piston knob just comes right off. You can then remove this little twisty mechanism. And then if you get some nice grippage on these threads here, again, don't use any kind of tool on that because you'll definitely crack it. You can get it off, but it is a reverse thread. So you're doing a righty-loosey, not a righty-tighty on this. So it's a reverse threads, and it will just come right out, which is great. And then you can push the piston right out for cleaning. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put some silicone grease on all the appropriate places when we for reassembly purposes. So let's get to that right now. So first thing we're going to put the silicone grease on is the piston itself. So we're going to do that. So a little silicone grease on the piston, also on this piston rod as well. So then we're going to essentially work that in right there. We'll then put a little bit of silicone grease on the reverse threaded unit that we took out a moment ago. We'll put that in there, and we'll put that right in. Now there's a little slot on that, so you have to kind of line this up with this threaded piston rod. And then again, remember it's going to be lefty-tighty here because it's a reverse thread. So we'll just screw that back in there. So this is actually fairly simple to disassemble. Now the only tricky part is getting this in and getting it lined up properly. So what you want to do here is push the piston out so it's just about flush with the end here. You then want to slowly push it in until it just barely engages with that. Then you want to remove this piece here, and you want to sort of get that seated well inside this cap. You then want to put that in, and then holding this end in here, you want to slowly turn until these threads engage and twist it all the way down. So what you want to be in is a situation like we have here, where this piston turning knob is completely flush and back up against the barrel like it is here, and have this piston be all the way down as far as it can go, which it is here. If you don't get to that situation, just take it out, start over, and fiddle with it a little bit more. But it's not super challenging, but that's about the only tricky part in the reassembly at all. And see, now we have a well-working piston. Then the last thing we're going to silicone grease is just this little bit of the section right here. And again, we'll put a tiny bit of silicone grease on that right there. Again, not strictly necessary, but since we have it apart, why not? So we'll wipe off any excess silicone grease there, and then we'll get ready to ink this pen up. So what I'm going to ink it up with is this ink here, which is Noodler's Old Manhattan. So now this is an interesting ink. You can't just get this anywhere. This is a Noodler's exclusive for Fountain Pen Hospital in New York. So if you want to get this ink, you either have to go to the Fountain Pen Hospital retail store, which is down on Warren Street in Manhattan, or you can order it online or mail order from Fountain Pen Hospital. This is a really cool ink. I've heard people say that they think this is like one of the blackest blacks that there is. I'm not 100% prepared to say that. It is a very, very dark black. We'll compare. We'll when we get this inked up, we'll compare it to a little bit to another black ink or two, and see how that looks. So I'm going to ink this pen up with Noodler's Old Manhattan Black, and we will see how that goes in a minute. Okay, now that we got it all inked up, I have to say the transparent barrel filled with this black ink, compared with the, contrasting, not contrasting, but complementing very nicely the black finials, the black piston turning knob, and the black section, I think looks actually really, really nice. So I think this was a good ink choice for this. But as always, pens were meant to write, and you want to see how this pen writes. So let's see that right now. And what we are writing with here is a Wing Sung model 699, but this is the piston filling variant. And this has a medium steel nib. And this is writing pretty nice. It's obviously a bit fine for a medium, but it is a Chinese fine, so I'd say it's really a fine bordering on a medium. But it writes quite nicely. I'd say it's probably about slightly above average in wetness. Has some pretty good flow, and writes very pleasantly. In terms of flex, you wouldn't really expect to see much, so there really isn't much. This is a pretty stiff nib, but nice. Definitely a very, very, very nice flowing pen. Comfortable to write, comfortable to hold. I didn't talk about posting before, but obviously the pen does post. It posts very well, pretty deeply, etc., and does not present any significant back weighting issues when posting. And the section is quite comfortable. These threads are basically non-existent in terms of feeling them or anything like that. And it's a comfortable section. And the nib, like I said, is a really nice nib. Number 6 size nib. Looks good, writes well, etc. So we're talking about a really, really nice pen here. So this definitely complements this Wing Sung Piston vac filler quite well. So I'm surprised they gave it the exact same model number. That's the only part I find a little puzzling, but hey, what the heck. It is body-wise and construction the exact same pen. The only difference really is the filling mechanism. So I guess that's not totally unexpected with the same model number. But again, a nice writing pen. If you have the 699 vac filler and you like it, you will probably like this pen. It does hold quite a bit of ink, so you're not really sacrificing too much in terms of ink capacity, if any at all, really, when you go from the vac filler to the piston filler. So that's about all I have to say about this pen. Let's talk about this ink for just a minute now. Okay, folks, so as we said, this ink is Noodler's Old Manhattan. And like I said, this is an exclusive to Fountain Pen Hospital in New York, so you'd have to get it from them one way or another. And this is a very dark black. That's really the appeal of it. So this is a very dark black. So I'm just going to compare it to some other black inks just quickly so we can get some sense for how black it is. So we'll do another little sample right here. So this is Noodler's Old Manhattan. So that is that ink. Now another ink that people always say is maybe a good candidate for the blackest black ever is Aurora Black. So let's take a look at that. So this is Aurora. Let's do some patches there. Let's go back for the Noodlers for a second. Oh, in case you're interested, the Aurora Black is being written with an Aurora 88. So here's our Old Manhattan. And the next one, I'm going to do one more, and we're going to do, which I know will not be as black as these two, which is Mont Blanc Mystery Black. So, Mont Blanc Mystery Black tends to have like a bit of a purple. It's basically a very, very, very dark purple. When you rinse it out in the sink, you see sort of a very dark purple color, not a black color necessarily. So, which is the darkest? Which is the blackest? I'll leave that up to you to decide. If I had to pick one at this particular junction, I would still give the edge probably to the Aurora Black as being blacker, but the Noodler's Old Manhattan is pretty darn black. So, that is that. Nice ink. Like I said, if you want a really, really dark black, and by the way, the Aurora Black Aurora inks are among the most expensive inks, and Noodlers are very, very moderately priced inks. So if you want a really, really, really dark black, and don't want to spend, quite a premium price for the Aurora ink, the Noodler's Old Manhattan is definitely a good, viable alternative. So I think that might just about do it for this episode this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're not a subscriber, I'd like to suggest you perhaps consider becoming one. If you have a comment, a question, or a suggestion, I'd love to hear it. Keep those thumbs up coming. And as always, until we see each other again, have a great day. Bye-bye.